So there are a lot of question marks surrounding the Minnesota Vikings interior pass rush this year, especially after the Vikings lost. Linval Joseph and Stephen Weatherly, two guys that were really great in the middle for the Vikings, and they drafted James Lynch in the 4th round. We're going to cover it, but first we're going to be covering you guys subscribing for takes from a diehard Minnesota Vikings fan that has suffered along with the rest of you for way too long, but you still got to love the purple. So anyway. We're going to get right into it, and before we do it, we want to make sure you guys like and also subscribe and comment on if you think James Lynch will, in fact, revamp the Minnesota Vikings interior pass rush. Well, let's get into it. First, let's start by seeing what the Vikings have right now. Now, Afadio Denabo and Stephen Weatherly, two guys you guys brought in to the inside on specific pass rushing downs, 3rd and long, guys that got after it in the inside, kind of like what the Vikings did with B-Rob back in the day, like they did with Everson Griffin when Jared Allen was around, like guys that were going to get after it on the inside, get some push, and be effective in those 3rd and long situations or pass rush situations when the Vikings defense was just, it was a great, and it's still great, but I still think that especially with what the Vikings got, James Lynch is going to do some stuff for him. So, Stephen Weatherly, he's gone. Afadio Denabo, he's going to go start on the edge now that Everson Griffin may or may not come back. Hope he does. I love Everson Griffin, one of my favorite Vikings of all time. But for the time being, Afadio Denabo is going to step in there, and I think he'll do a great job. And then also, Linval Joseph is gone. That's going to be a bigger loss than people think. He's a guy that was a leader on the inside, a captain, and always brought it. Now, he might not have always produced the most sacks, but he always got good push, always put pressure on the quarterback. Just a mauler in the run game, too. Always had a double team coming his way. Now, Michael Pierce is coming in, which is great and all, but there's still some question marks surrounding the Vikings in terms of getting an interior pass rush. Shamar Stephen, 7th round draft pick from the Vikings a while ago, hasn't been great in pass rushing situations. Like he's kind of a run game savant. He's a guy that makes the occasional run stop and does his assignment. Nothing like to write home about, but he gets the job done. And I thought he was going to be great when he came back for the Vikings, but he didn't have as much of an impact as I thought he would. But still, hopefully he can turn around next year and see if he can do something. So yeah, the Vikings defensive line. Also, you don't know what you're getting out of Jaleel Johnson and Jalen Holmes. Like, what's going to happen there? Like Jaleel Johnson, every time I see him on tape, he's either getting driven off the ball or he just basically jumps on the pile after the play is already over. So I don't know. I mean, he's made a couple plays, but I don't know what we're going to get out of him. Maybe he'll both him and Holmes will turn it on. Entering some of the final years of the contract. I think it's going to be interesting to see. Excited, but also nervous. Entering James Lynch, who the Vikings drafted in the 4th round of the 2020 NFL Draft, 130th overall. A little bit of background: 6'4", 290 pounds. Might get 295. I don't know. He's going to probably play inside, even though he played defensive end for Baylor. Pride of Texas, baby. Had 2019 consensus All-American, 2019 Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, and quite frankly, he's kind of a dude. Like, this guy can play, and I think now if you're just going to take a look at his combine numbers, you're going to think, okay, he's not amazing, he's not a world beater, but sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you just need a football player to go out there. And I think coaches, especially coaches like Mike Zimmer, just love those football players. And I believe Mr. Lynch is exactly like that. So first year coming out of Baylor, freshman, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 19 total tackles in 7 games of action. Now, not exactly big numbers, but from a freshman, you like what you see there. 2018 came back next year for Baylor, played in 12 games, 4.5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss. And you know what? Did his thing. Defensive tackle on a 3-4 scheme, did his thing and really created havoc. And then last year, the 2019 year, where he came on Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, 13.5 sacks, 19.5 for loss, 41 total tackles. And just a guy that you saw just made an impact every time he was on the field. Just now, if you watch him again, he's not the most athletic guy, but in terms of just never giving up, in terms of hand usage, technique, leverage, he comes in with a plan every time. He just never quits. And quite frankly, I almost like those throwback defensive ends rather than your freaks. Almost more than guys like Everson Griffin or Jadeveon Clowney, guys that are just gifted. Not more than Daniel Hunter either. Like that guy's really good too. But anyway, point is, James Lynch, he's probably going to slide down to the inside, especially with Afadi going to play defensive end. And I think he's really going to do some really great things for this Minnesota Vikings defensive line. I think if he gets off to a quick start, I think he could potentially take the spot or spots of Jaleel Johnson and Jalen Holmes. Like this is already getting pretty cramped defensive tackle room with Hercules Matafa. What are you going to get out of him as well? Armon Watts played really well last year. I think he's going to actually probably start in one of those defensive tackle spots. I think he should, in my opinion, start over Shamar Stephen, but that's a discussion for another day. This is getting to be a very, very crowded defensive tackle room for the Minnesota Vikings, so I expect James Lynch to only make that harder and just create harder competition for everybody. I do expect him to come in on pass rushing downs and just eat. Just go out there and eat people's lunches. I think that's how it goes. But anyway, your guys' thoughts. Will James Lynch, in fact, revamp the Vikings interior pass rush? Comment below. Will he do it?